So I'm filling in for Jonah for these 4 sessions. We've often had 2 tracks of distance learning program going at the same time, and we would usually swap in January for 4 sessions to be able to be with the group and get to know them and do a session. And so I will do what we have often done during this curriculum on the kingdom of God, is take these 4 sessions and look at the kingdom of the heavens, which is connected to the stars, the world above us. That is the heavens in the biblical sense. And the one who is called in our renewed creed in the Christian community, the Lord of the heavenly forces on earth. This one who said during his trial, when he was asked if he was a king by Pilate, he said, "My kingdom is not of this world." You see, Jesus Christ is an extraterrestrial. He is. That word means you come from outside the earth. An extraterrestrial. And he has moved in to our planet. But his kingdom is not of this world. So this incredible question that faces those who turn towards him and recognize in him what we say in our worship service: Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord. I don't know if you knew you had a Lord. I find most people in the Christian community don't really know they have a Lord. They're a little uncomfortable with the traditional evangelical phrasings. Have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? We call it the Lord's Prayer. But most of us are pretty proud of our own lordship and are a little uncomfortable saying, yeah, I've got a king. Right? It's very interesting. It's a very rich territory, but there is a king and he has a kingdom, and those who love him and want to be a part of his life are invited to find his kingdom. How do you enter it? Where is it? How do you experience it? It's an Easter kingdom. It's an Easter kingdom. It's a new world, new realm, new reality. It's the kind of thing you have to go on an Easter egg hunt for. It's there. It's in reality, but you got to look for it. It's hidden in the world. That's why we ask the children, will you seek him? It's a seeking. Where is this realm, this kingdom? Because we've done so much work as spiritual beings actually getting used to living in this earth reality, and then we meet this being on earth, and then he says, but my reality is not of this world. Shoot. Well, what is your reality? How do I enter it? What is this kingdom you're proclaiming also in the Gospels? So that's this beautiful question, and you all have been living with Jonah very much, I know, in the work with the parables in the Gospels that Jesus tries to give again and again pictures from this world that point to this other world. So we'll try to deepen that, also looking at life outside the body. So the heavens that we experience when we lay aside our body, between death and new birth. But we'll also very much look at the heavens in Scripture and the actual heavens above your head. So just a little bit of a preview. We will be opening with a little bit of a different prayer than we have been doing in our, this is also not just the distance learning program of the seminary, this is the Living with Christ group of the Toronto congregation in Vaughan, Ontario. And we have this beautiful tradition of not just learning, but also trying to together cultivate an active living prayer life where we feel his presence, seek his presence and feel it. So we will do that this time over these 4 sessions, tuning into the special revelation of Epiphany. So it's always really nice to do this work because we're in the season in the Christian year that really looks at the revelation of Jesus Christ as a starry revelation. There is this pronouncement from the altar in the act of consecration that was just celebrated in this congregation, where the priest is facing the congregation, the server is holding the book, and we hear these powerful words right there at the beginning: the worlds of spirit, star radiant. The worlds of spirit, star radiant. Made an announcement. And we know that the ones who were able to find where the hoped for king would be born, the only ones who knew where to go, according to Matthew, were the ones who knew how to read the stars. They were communicating. They were the ones who could lead them to the place. That's like some of the very first information we get about who this being is. Who is he? He's the one the stars know. And only the humans on earth who can be in relationship with the stars will find him. That's like one of the first stories. The worlds of spirit, star radiant. And at the beginning and the ending of the act of consecration, our communal prayer during the Epiphany time, you hear the congregation speaking through the priest who is saying, we have a longing, we have a desire. We want to step into a ray of light that is shining from someone. And this ray of light is coming from something called the star of grace. What kind of star is this? It's a grace star. That's how you'd say it directly in German, Gnadenstern. A grace star. Gnadenstern.
Gnadenstern.
Gnadenstern. Oh, just had a flash of a dream of someone who could speak German in my life who doesn't speak German. You know how that happens? All of a sudden dreams come in. Strange. Gnadenstern, the night world, and the stars that shine in it. There is one whose rays we want to step into. We want to step into these rays. And we hear also in the liturgy that this is not a cold light. It's not a faraway star. It is divine. It is warm. It is shining. And it is full of something we call salvation. All of that is in the information of the experience of being in the rays of this star. Divine, warm, shining of salvation. At the end of his life, Rudolf Steiner wrote some articles from his sickbed that are collected in the book called Anthroposophical Leading Thoughts. And there is one called Michael's Mission in the Cosmic Age of Human Freedom. Michael's Mission in the Cosmic Age of Human Freedom. And he gives a kind of meditation there in this essay that we can use as our opening prayer. So if you want to tune in to this sense that we want to step into the rays that are coming from this one who is himself a shining divine warmth, out of which is streaming healing. When a human being faces the physical sun and receives from it warmth and light, he knows that he is living in a reality. In the same way, he must live in the presence of Christ, the spiritual sun, who has joined his life to that of earth, and receive actively from him into his soul that which in the spiritual world corresponds to warmth and light. He will feel himself permeated by spiritual warmth when he experiences the Christ in me. St. Paul calls to us from his letter to the Ephesians, picturing to us that inside us is an inner human being who needs to be awakened. And he says, "Sleeper, awake, and Christ will shine upon you." So may all of our work together seek the rays of this shining star of grace. Amen. Yes, this, of course, is echoed by three of the Gospels, the first three Gospels, that have as a kind of midpoint in their story a moment where Jesus takes three of his disciples up a mountain. So closer into the skies. See, if you want to get near God in Scripture, you have to climb mountains. You have to go up. And if you lived in Egypt or in Mesopotamia, where there was nothing but flat plains and rivers, then you had to build mountains. Really. So they built pyramids and they built ziggurats. And if you lived in North America at this time or later, you also built mountains. All of the peoples in South America, in North America, they built mountains. They could feel we're losing our connection. We've got to get closer before the heavens and the earth fully separate. We need something that can reach up and touch into the sky world where God lives. And so in the Gospels too, you find in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the story of Jesus taking Peter, James, and John, three disciples with him, up a mountain, and then his physical garment disappears, and suddenly what he's wearing is light. That's his garment. And his face is shining like the sun. There are various little differences in each of the descriptions. But when the earthly Jesus garment disappears from their gaze, what they see is he's wearing the cosmic garment of the sun. And then they see him speaking with Moses and Elijah. And they see this decision to come down the mountain and go to Golgotha. That's the turning point in the story. This revelation of his star nature, that is the earth star, the sun, the source of life, the most glorious and powerful star in the skies, the sun. But they see this one is the one now. From now on, is everything we're going to learn and watch from this human being, we need to keep in mind is a revelation of the Son on earth. That's what the gospel writers are trying to tell us. You cannot, it's like, before we tell you what happened to him, his trial, his suffering, his death, and his resurrection, we first have to tell you the story he took us up the mountain. And this is really hard. It's very interesting. Well, everyone knows the Transfiguration story, but they don't realize, please look with spirit vision at everything you're going to see now when he's teaching and confronting, for example, the Pharisees. and pointing out their sins. That is sunlight. Right? Everything in the presence of the sun is revealed. You see it. When he is dying on the cross and he speaks words of forgiveness, that is sun warmth. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. These gospel writers want us to see everything that happens after that moment as a revelation of the being of the Son, the spiritual being of the Son. There's any other way you might try to interpret what this is, even though this would be mostly heretical in most Christian churches. It's like, no, that can't be right. Well, it's in the gospel. What else is it? He's only a son when he's up on the mountain? He's the sun human. And that means we're being led into the mystery of what does the spirit of the Son look like when it becomes a human biography? And the challenge to all of us to begin to see through the garments of our bodies to the quality of our shining. That experience that we can have when we looked back maybe on the end of the day and I can see how I was with my children or my relationships and see, actually, I was blocking the sun. Or I think I became a window. Something of him was shining through. So he is the star. He is the sun, Novalis wrote. He is the star. He is the sun. And it has something to do with this kingdom. So in Luke's gospel, the kingdom is described as the kingdom of God. In Matthew's gospel, he calls it the kingdom of the heavens. And now we need to take just a moment and feel into our sense for the English language. There are some people who speak Dutch and German and other languages, maybe some Portuguese, some Swedish. Any other languages in the room? French? Italian. So it'll be interesting, maybe some more also online, to look at what happens when you hear the word. What do you picture when I say the word heaven? First thing comes to mind. Heaven.
God.
God.
Like cloud and blue sky.
Clouds and blue sky.
Dangus is the blue sky. Well, it can have clouds.
What language was that?
Lithuanian.
Lithuanian. Dalgos?
Dangus.
Dalgos is the blue sky.
Dangus.
I'm sorry. I don't speak Lithuanian. You want to come up and speak it? So Eleanor is going to speak some Lithuanian. No? Yeah, come on up. Yeah. I can hear you, but I don't think they can hear you.
It's Dangus.
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 Lithuanian for heaven.
Heaven.
Which means?
Well, it could be the biblical heaven, but it can also be our physical type of.
Okay,
thinking.
Biblical heaven, and it can also mean the skies.
Yeah, the sky, if we're not thinking.
So if I say heaven, what do you think and feel? And when I say sky?
Heaven for me is throne, the golden throne.
Golden throne. I grew up seeing pearly gates everywhere in cartoons and various things like that. Heaven was some version of Club Med. It was like, oh, it's just heaven. But it had nothing to do with the sky. In English, right? Sky. Is there any heaven in sky? This is a language event, which is a consciousness event in the history of humankind. That the word for sky and the word for the spiritual world separated is new. In most of the old languages, they're the same word. The biblical heaven is the same word as the biblical sky. There's no other word for the sky. It's the same word. So you can translate the beginning of Genesis where it says, and this, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's how we usually translate it, right? But you really could say the skies and the land. How does that sound? How does that sound? Do you notice that mostly in at least North American English too, that just sounds like things without God? This is really amazing. The skies and the land, and then there's the heavens and the earth. There's something holy, and then there are these things. You know, with oxygen and nitrogen in it. You know, some carbon dioxide. That's in the sky. If you go too high up the mountain, you'll die. Because you need more oxygen. The air is too thin.
It's interesting to listen to the words of the song that is used for the Big Bang Theory in the beginning. Have you ever listened?
I don't know it. I don't know it.
The Bare Naked Ladies is the group.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's called In the Beginning. Uh-huh.
Bang.
Bare Naked Ladies is not what it sounds like. It's just a band. It was a rock and roll band from the 90s, I think. And
the line, die Himmel preisen des ewigen Ehre.
the heavens give praise to the eternal honor of God.
Yeah.
That's a quote with my poor translation from a psalm.
Yeah.
The heavens declare the glory of God. And it should be translated the skies.
Really?
For us, we need to regain the skies. We need to reconsecrate them. Because the skies have become emptied of God. What's in the skies now? Starlink, skyscrapers, satellites. We just had an amazing starry event in the skies, and it was the death of a machine bursting into light forms. One of the space ships from what's Elon Musk's company again? The Starship company. Anyone know? Help me.
SpaceX.
SpaceX, one of their spaceships broke apart, and it was this incredible, beautiful breaking up, looking very much like it does when you see shooting stars. Shooting stars. What's the okay? Shooting star. How do we feel about shooting stars? Warm, fuzzy feelings. I still have some. When I say shooting star, what about dissolving space rocks? The same thing. Do you see how powerful language is? Dissolving space rocks as they enter the atmosphere. That's one way to describe shooting star.
Well, why don't we feel the same?
Why don't we feel the same?
Isn't the wonder?
Wonder is missing.
Yeah. I laugh like a child when I see a
Shooting star. Right? You're not like, oh, look, more space rock. But there are many of us who have begun to take on that consciousness and more. In the 1930s, C.S. Lewis recognized what was happening to the skies, language-wise. It was the birth of horror science fiction. H.G. Wells was beginning to write because as the world had become, as the vision of the cosmos that we lived in became, we are a floating rock, or as on a third-rate planet next to a not-so-large star, a teeny-tiny solar system within a massive galaxy among billions of other galaxies, floating around in an impossible to measure emptiness. This dark, cold, that's what happened to the heavens. They became a dark, cold, empty of being place with gases. Like that's what I have in my bowels. Yeah, what's a star? It's a gas body. So it's a luminous gas body. That's right. You can feel something dying in us. So the death of the heavens has actually happened in our consciousness, and they became skies, particularly in the West, in our language. So C.S. Lewis was noticing this, and what was emerging out of that was a new genre, a horror genre. Now, not the places where the divine beings and the angels will be coming to us from there, but unknown monstrous entities, extraterrestrials who want to devour us. It reached a fever pitch in the United States of America in a radio program. Many of you might know this story. It was a radio drama that was written by, not by H.G. Wells, was it?
Orson Welles.
Orson Welles, of course, thank you. War of the Worlds. And they did it as if it was a real news program. You remember? I don't know if you've ever heard it. You know, that's just it. And they would do that, like classic 1940s, there are reports on the East Coast of the United States of America, like this. And people are like tuning into this radio show and they think they're listening to the news. And because this consciousness had already so permeated human beings, people lost their minds. It was a radio drama. People committed suicide. They were so terrified at what was happening, as what was being described. These spaceships coming from outer space and attacking human beings. So there's an incredible research done by a woman named Diana Pasulka, Pasulka. I can only highly recommend her work. Diana Pasulka. And she is actually a religious studies scholar. And she had just finished her book on purgatory. So that realm of existence just after the human being died, that lived as in a very strong way in the Middle Ages and was a very effective tool of the church to control human beings. So the real realm of existence that does exist, where we purify ourselves on our way to pure spirit, became known as purgatory, which just means the place where we get cleansed. Right? A bath. How's that feel? Purgatory, how are we feeling? Right? Language is really powerful. Cleansing. So this place of fire cleansing on our spiritual journey after death, she was doing a study of it and looking at reports of it, experiences of souls after death. She did a deep study of these descriptions. She finishes her book and looking at how such an idea works socially and wrote a book on it. She came across a lot of strange things. It's the souls of the dead in light orbs. Light discs were described in the 1300s. But she's a modern human and she's thinking, that sounds kind of like a flying saucer. And she wants to so she didn't include it in her purgatory book, but she was wondering what's going on there. Does that have anything to do with what's happening in all these kind of reports about UFOs and experiences like that? And so she opened that door, and it was a very big, a lot of things come through that door when you open that door. And we're right now in the middle of a moment, which is really, truly amazing, where they are now talking in the United States Senate and Congress about the thousands upon thousands of unidentified flying objects, or UAPs, unidentified phenomenon, because sometimes they're going underwater, sometimes they're encounters with beings. And they have too many credible witnesses to just, they can't explain it all. There's a whole ton of this. This is bogus. That's not worth exploring. It was a lightning phenomenon. It was this. They're able to explain it. But there are too many experiences people are having for them to just explain it. They cannot explain. And I literally listened as a congresswoman asked one of the people who was doing a report, so are you saying that these are interdimensional beings? That just happened in Congress. They're talking about interdimensional beings now. That's okay, apparently.
Not angels, right? Don't speak about angels.
Well, interdimensional beings, they could be angels, they could be demons. Beings that exist in multiple levels of existence. And probably one of the most compelling and predominant direction in the quote-unquote New Age tradition right now is related to extraterrestrials. That is, human beings who feel, I'm actually not an earthling, I'm actually from the Pleiades. Actually, I'm a Venetian. Actually, and they call themselves star seeds. Star seeds. I'm not from here. I know it. I've known it since I was a kid. I am not from this planet. Anyone else feel that every once in a while? Ever felt like, how did I get here? Looking around at the people around you going, are we the same species? I'm not sure. This is a very powerful human experience, right? We are actually spiritual beings on a human journey, not human beings on a spiritual journey. We are from there. But it's just an enormous thing that is happening, and actually probably one of the most popular television shows over the past quote-unquote documentaries from the History Channel, that has over 20 seasons. Do you know what it's called? Ancient Aliens. Ancient Aliens. What it is doing is retelling all of world history, spiritual cultural history, Egypt, Mesopotamia, you name it, the Bible, and explaining it as visitors from outer space. And you might laugh. They're really good at telling the story. And they bring out a bunch of phenomena. You're like, oh yeah, I'm not sure how you can explain that actually. And then there are all these accounts from initiates who speak of these beings who descend and bring them wisdom from a higher plane. Well, from where did they descend? If your consciousness doesn't allow for anything but the physical world, they have to be aliens. Because there's too much that actually happens on the earth that you could never explain as a natural outflow from molecules. That's just a fact. This is a real scientific problem. You cannot actually get from mitochondria to an Egyptian pyramid. It's not possible. That itself is so built and shaped that it is utterly patterned on the stars, as well as Stonehenge. Right? All over the world, the ancient cultures, our ancestors built their central worship sites to be in alignment with the starry world, and hope that that would bring the harmony, peace, and life that they sought on earth. We've always been praying as above in the heavens, so also on the earth. But now when our consciousness has fallen, the heavens fell too. So that we look up at the stars and we just don't experience what our ancestors clearly did. And so C.S. Lewis, going back around to that, saw all of this happening had a different experience in his soul, was a medieval specialist. So he knew Dante's work, and he knew the worldview and the cosmology of the ancients in medieval Christianity. And he saw, well, Jupiter was a being. It's not a giant gas planet. That's the radiance of the kingly one among the stars. Venus is a being, and she has a realm that she rules, and her powers rule in that realm. Mars is a being, and these are a part of the great, what the northern myths would call the Rainbow Bridge. What in scriptural tradition would be called Jacob's ladder, upon which the angels are ascending and descending. An attempt to make a temple was an attempt to create a link between those other regions and the beings who rule within them. And so C.S. Lewis, steeped in that worldview, which felt so warm, so bright, so full of energies that helped explain the world, and you could feel in life, the Jupiter and the Venus, they have influences on us. This helps explain reality, actually. And it's not all just the sun. Then there's the moon. Moon has an influence on us. How do we take the modern consciousness and reclaim the heavens to permeate the skies with the heavens again? And so he attempted to write, C.S. Lewis, the writer of the Chronicles of Narnia, attempted to write a space trilogy. So I'm just so curious, viewers at home, people here in the room, raise your hand if you have read C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy.
Please, what?
Space Trilogy of 3 books.
You mean the Narnias?
No, that's a 7-book series permeated by the idea of the 7 heavens. The whole of Narnia is composed by this idea. But he wrote for adults, 7. Oh, I see Bob. Bob's raising his hand. Karen.
Wonderful books.
John. Awesome. I mean, incredible books. William. Bill. Anyone else? Hands up again at home. I didn't see your hands. Nice. Eunice is well, Eunice, who can keep up with Eunice with the reading? So the first one is called Out of the Silent Planet. And I would just highly recommend this beautiful little book.
The silent what?
Out of the Silent Planet. A crisis has happened in the solar system. The Earth has grown silent. All the rest of the beings of the stars communicate with one another. And every planet has a spiritual entity, single being who is the ruling being of that planet. And there is a battle going on for who will rule Earth. A rebellion within the order of the larger cosmos. And it's the story of a philologist, of course, because C.S. Lewis was a philologist, so he has to be kind of the main character, and he gets kidnapped and taken onto a spaceship, which is going to Mars, with 2 representatives of our modern consciousness and Western consciousness. You could say British imperialists and modern scientists who want to get to Mars and take advantage of all of its resources. Does that sound mildly familiar at all to anybody?
Life imitates art, right?
Because it was known back then that this is already a hope and intention. That the same mode of consciousness that we carry on the earth in our imperialistic resource grabbing, because we're going to use up the earth, we have to go to another planet so we can use it up. This is the dark picture of a consciousness that thinks that the planet is a thing rather than the body of a being. And that every star that shows itself to our physical eyes is simply the light body of a being. Just like I look and I've grown accustomed relatively, and we're working on it, to look at other human beings in human bodies and try to grant you being. And not think I'm the only being in the universe and you are all here to serve me. Or at least stop annoying me. Oh, to have the sense that you are a being. Why would it be different with every other body? Animals, we can kind of do it. Plants, we're working on it. Stones. Planets. Comets. Stars, galaxies, solar systems. This absolute separation between body and spirit is the fall of humankind. And the work of reunion, the reunion of body and spirit, is the sacramental task of Christianity in Christ. That the skies become the heavens again. But they won't do it for us. It has to actually begin in us and grow out from us. That's the amazing challenge. The heavens, the skies declare the glory of God. This is the psalm. The stars in the skies. And the Hebrew scripture, though, goes one further because it was worried that they had a special task, the Hebrew people, the people of God, don't worship the stars. Most of the other peoples did. They worshipped one version, one particular star, or a whole view. Well, you got to go worship this star if you want these things, this star if you want those things. Try to get their approval through some kind of sacrificial rite. You want to worship the being who put those stars in place. You want to go all the way up to the throne of the being that the whole universe is his body. And those stars are simply his servants. And that's the story of Genesis. It's so powerful. There are no stars, there is no sun, there is no moon. There is only darkness and chaos at the beginning. And this being speaks, and what comes out of this being speaking is light. But it's not a planet. It's not a star. Not until day 4. Once the sky realm has been built, does he populate it with stars and the sun and the moon. He places these lords of the skies. There's a being behind them, a greater being. That's the one actually we want to worship.
Are you talking about the Hebrew people?
This was the special mission where they again and again don't fall into the things that the other pagans are doing, just praying to the stars. You have a task to try to find the being behind that, which is also the I am. It is the inmost and the uppermost. The inmost and the uppermost. Okay. Now raise your hand if you've read Narnia. A few hands. All right. Did anyone get triggered here? Did that? I'll say it again. They had to find the uppermost and the inmost. So those of you who know the 7th book, depending on not the chronological order, but the order written, they go into this experience of going towards God, and they keep going up and in, up and in, higher, but more deep. That is how between the ziggurat of Babylon, which was an outer mountain, and you were to climb up it and meet with God at the top, and the pyramid of Egypt, you were to go into a special chamber in its depths. In the Solomon temple, you would go through gates and go upstairs and into a next chamber. And from that chamber, you had to go upstairs through a gate and into a more inward chamber until you get to the innermost. But to get to that, you've got to go up again and through a veil. So that if you were to turn it on its side and see the Temple of Solomon, you see stairs up, outer court, stairs up, court of sacrifice, stairs up, holy space that's enclosed with the gold all around and the menorahs lit, bread and cups of wine, and the altar of incense. Only the priests can go in there. And then the last chamber up and all dark. Utter darkness, a perfect cube where the name of God was to be spoken and felt, the innermost, up and in. And this is this mysterious challenge when we try to conceive of the heavens. Above us in our time has become a question of light years.
Of what?
Light years.
Light,
It's
yeah.
distance. Isn't it interesting? When you look at a star or the moon, I assume many of you don't have telescopes looking at the moons of Jupiter, for example. When you look up, do you have the feeling that it's far away? Does it feel near?
It's approaching us.
Coming near? Depending on maybe the size of the moon and a harvest moon can feel very close.
No, as though it's connecting the heavens and yours coming together.
Well, it must be connecting with you, right? Because actually at that moment, there are rays of light entering your eye.
It's bigger than any of the stars we see, so it feels like it's
The
closer.
moon, yeah, but the stars too. The light of stars are entering your eye. Actual light from that being. There is an unbroken bridge between us and the one who is shining. But we can't see light. You can't see that bridge. It's invisible. Like when we look into each other's eyes, you can't actually see what's flowing between us, but you can feel it. When you feel like you're seeing each other, looking into each other's eyes, there's something actually flowing back and forth. The light of a person's eyes, and you can see when somebody's spirits are dimmed. You can see when their spirits are down. It's actually visible. We know it. Everybody knows it because we're clairvoyant. Oh, we're allowed to say that? The only reason we're not clairvoyant is because you think you're not clairvoyant. Because we're so used to the loudness of our senses, we're unused to describing all that we perceive that is beyond the senses, including the spirits of your beloved friends and family members that are shining out of their eyes. How can you see that? Even the kids these days, they say, oh, don't give me side eye. You know what side eye is? Anyone know what side eye is? So you say something, they go like that. Right? If I look at you like that and not straight on, can you feel what's happening there? There's a different soul energy coming your way. You're like, oh, she just said that? Mm-hmm. I'm sending information through my gaze. Or when I look at you like, right? Why do emojis work? It's very strange. A little circle with some squiggles on it. Because actually the human face is communicating soul spirit energies. We are emitting rays. And that's what, of course, became popular through the 60s. I started talking about it. I was like, I don't really like his vibe. It's because we're actually emitting information that is not visible or physical in any way. It's soul spiritual. And what we're just not used to is tracking that, naming it, and becoming careful observers of it, because we only have a natural science, we don't have a spiritual science. But that doesn't mean we aren't having these experiences all the time. So that it begins to try to point towards this thing that we want to work on over these next weeks. How does the abstract natural scientific of the shining ones in the skies become actually more and more something that I'm familiar with because it's a revelation of the astral world? What I just described to you with the side eye and that's revelations of the astral, the star world. Isn't it interesting? Even in anthroposophical circles, like, yeah, the astral body, no, you could also say the star body. The starry realms are the realms of soul and spirit. And we live in them. In fact, you're much more of the stars than of the earth. That's why when you die, you leave your physical body behind. And when we take communion, what we're seeking is a physical body that's become a star body. It's so permeated with star forces that it's now the Earth star. And how we'll need to, maybe by the end, begin to see the mystery of Golgotha and what this extraterrestrial came here to do is actually take over the planet, to become its ruling God. Golgotha is a planetary moment of war.
Of what?
War.
Can you say that again?
Yep. Golgotha is a moment in a cosmic battle. It is a day of victory for planet Earth, where a being from the realm of the sun came to Earth to vanquish the prince of this world. What is that term? That's from John. The prince of this world is the being who was trying to take over the planet and become the ruling power, making it silent and not a part of the harmony of the stars that C.S. Lewis was trying to work on in his trilogy. It is a moment of the victory in the story of the cosmic battle for the earth. So that's a teaser for the whole rest of the four sessions, and hopefully also stirs your wonderings about it in a new way. But these I wanted to have in our midst as kind of our first contemplations, to try to just stir up all of our kind of asleep assumptions about what we think we understand as heavens and skies, stars, and who we are. And hopefully that did a little bit. So thank you all for your attention. I'm going to close again just with these words from Rudolf Steiner, because I think, no, we have a little bit of time for reflections, I think, still, right?
Roger, can I ask, did you give us the question for the conversation groups?
No, I didn't. You were hoping for a question for the conversation groups. Yeah, the question is very simple. What does this stir up in your soul? What questions have risen up for you? What does this make you wonder about? But I want to leave, it looks like it's in the usual plan at this point to just me stop talking and just open it up for thoughts, reflections, and questions, also from here in the room or from you at home. So if you would, those of you at home, if you know how to raise your digital hand, that'll be helpful because quite a few of you don't have your video on. Otherwise, you can try waving and see if I see you. I'm going to go to Eleonora here first, and I'll repeat the question.
Got an inner correction that in Lithuanian, it's also said Dangaus Karalystė, which means the kingdom of the sky.
Kingdom of the skies, yes. So Eleonora gave us the full phrase from the Bible in Lithuanian that came to her memory, the kingdom, the skies. But I can't speak Lithuanian, so.
Well, Karalius is a king.
Karalos. Oh, that's a beautiful king word. Karalos. Yeah. Yeah. Sue, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah. Nice and loud.
Okay, good. Yeah, this is pretty mind-blowing. Wow, this is really, my mind is just spinning. The thought that, one of the thoughts that comes to me is, and maybe this is not something we're supposed to be focusing on. I never hear anybody talking about it, but if this is the battle on our planet, and Golgotha is a huge happening in this war, I mean, what's happening on all those other planets? Are they in?
Question.
Yeah, just it's mind-blowing.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I would say is, born of compassionate interest, that's a beautiful question. And we can carry it and wonder and take an interest in those other worlds. In general, however, I always like to say, well, if we could figure out our worlds, that would be already amazing. We don't want to get lost trying to figure out somebody else's world too much. That could be a danger. So there are two dangers always for Earth. To think that Earth has nothing to do with the skies and to separate off from those heavenly worlds and be only things and matter. The other danger is to forget this material world and to only want to be in the sky world of the past. Those who follow Christ want to build a new sky world in the earth world. He is the Lord of the heavenly forces on earth. It's not about those other worlds. It's about the new kingdom coming into being here. But if you're interested, I can recommend, and anyway, for these 4 weeks, Rudolf Steiner did share a little in his research into these worlds, very briefly, in this cycle of lectures called Life Between Death and New Birth. And there he speaks about a profound event that happened in the realm of Mars, because also it's not a physical planet, it's a whole field of reality. That the curvature, you could say the orbit of that planet is marking out territory. You will never find these beings as dwellers necessarily on that rock. So there he describes actually that the Buddha had a special mission after he achieved the deepest peace within his being to go to the realm where the forces of war come from and accomplish something that could change Mars forever. So that is something you find intriguing, Sue, or anyone else. I encourage you to read that cycle of lectures. All right, we've got Bob and Betty with their hand up.
Yes, sir. Which is the leading thought that for the meditation?
Yes, that is, once again, Michael's mission in the cosmic age of human freedom.
Is there a number to that leading thought?
No, because it's not one of the leading thought numbers.
Oh, it's not.
It's an essay.
You say that again?
Michael's mission in the cosmic age of human freedom. Just an absolutely stunning and beautiful essay, along with all of those Michael essays at the end of his life. They are stunning. Carlos.
How's it going, Patrick?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I wanted to have a reflection I was thinking about, as you mentioned, C.S. Lewis, about the going up and going within, and related to the macrocosm and the microcosm, and how that relates to when Christ came during the mystery of Golgotha, how this macrocosm descended into the center of the earth, into its core, and how deep that is, to not only help us evolve, but as you mentioned, the earth being, for our earth evolution to evolve as well.
Awesome. Yeah, this image of Jesus cleansing the temple, I think, gives us an imagination of his mission for the earth, which should become a temple and does at the end of time. In the end, the whole planet rises as a phoenix out of the ashes of the old earth. This new kingdom suddenly becomes visible, and the old one passes away, and you see the whole thing has become the dwelling place of God. In order to do that, he's got to get to not just to the surface of the earth, but in the ancient world, they had the understanding of the skies, as it was a three-tiered cosmos in general: the skies, the surface of the earth where we live, and then Sheol, Hades, the underworld. And in the underworld, there is a corresponding anti-heaven with a similar level of layers and realities to the upper worlds. And for him to achieve the victory, he needed to actually permeate all of that territory as well. And then from the inside out, conquer the earth. Because his conquering looks very different than the powers of conquering of this world. That's part of Golgotha. The challenge of Golgotha is it's a constant stumbling block. We're watching a powerless one who is being humiliated and abused win. We don't even know how to think that. That's the challenge of Christianity, is to watch this one who, in loving mercy and forgiveness and compassionate participation and absorbing death, conquers death. That's what happens then in the what Carlos is referring to is in tradition understood, and also Rudolf Steiner's research confirms what took place, what's called the harrowing of hell, where Christ goes on Holy Saturday into the depths of the earth, releases those in bondage, and actually permeates that darkness with his light, changing death forever and the underworld. But the victory is not over, as we know. There are plenty of demons around, and there's plenty of work still to do. As the book of Revelation reveals, this is a long story. But I'll stop there, and Carlos, just check in with you. Was there anything else you were thinking of there that you wanted to make sure to touch on?
No, you just hit the spot. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Lydia Marie here.
It's this turning point of time. I'm never sure whether the turning point of time is Golgotha, is that time that you're speaking about, the winning of that war in a way. Is that the turning point of time that Steiner speaks about?
Yes.
Thank you.
The question was, is this victory event on Golgotha what Rudolf Steiner is pointing at with the term that he used, the turning point of time? You could say the shift in the Earth's story. From then on, the ultimate victory is coming, and it can't be stopped. But the enemy will try everything, and it will get difficult, very difficult. But the ultimate victory is actually already achieved. It's like a seed that's growing. It's like you can't actually stop it. It'll be just who all is going to be participating in it and a part of that new world, or fall prey to, they're going to try to grab as many of us as they can and as much of the earth as they can. Those who do not want that future, the beings, the prince of this world. That's the story of Christianity, the cosmic story. Lewis, and then we have Irene.
Hi, Patrick. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Nice to meet you.
Are you visible?
Yeah, I'm visible.
I can't find you yet. Hold on, let me find you. Oh, there we go. Hi, Lewis. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I'm a bit illuminated by the
You
sun.
are illuminated, yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting what you just said. We had our conversation group yesterday, and we were discussing the question that Jonah left with us from before Christmas about salvation and about the nature of salvation. And then, what you just described then kind of took me back to that conversation. I can't, to just paraphrase you, you were saying it's already a given, that the victory is assured. And this was something, yeah, in the conversation we were having yesterday about salvation. And I don't want to take things political at all, but I've been really intrigued by this thing in the news about the idea of a preemptive pardon, and in relation to the concept of salvation. And because my idea of salvation, where I'm at with it, is it's a kind of, it's a daily reprieve. It's not a given. It's not this preemptive pardon, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think I know. Yeah, I think I can see.
So I just wondered if you could perhaps, elaborate on what I've just brought.
Yeah, well, I think the challenge for most of Christian thinking up until this point is to try to figure out what the meaning of the words are when Jesus speaks from the cross, "It is finished." And what it means that it is clearly, when we look around, not done. And this mystery that we need to grow our minds into the mind of God, which is what we're underway with. And we shouldn't be shocked if that's not complete yet, because this is a mind that seems to include the victory was achieved and the victory is ongoing. The work of victory is continuing. So that you get to the book of Revelation and you hear all of these promises spoken in the letters given to the congregations. For those who conquer or overcome, you will receive X, Y, Z. And maybe in your own life, there's been some battles you've been in that you have lost. But you've gotten back up and gotten back in, and maybe a couple that went your way through the grace of God. That daily peace. So that where I personally am, as Paul said, working out my salvation. So there's planetary salvation, which was accomplished in him taking the throne. That's in imagination. By Christ leaving his solar throne and coming to the earth and setting up his divine throne within the earth reality, now the salvific energies are always available to us while we work out our personal salvation within the cosmic salvation. And that, I hear, is the preemptive pardon. There are forces available now that were not here before. Forces that you actually had to leave the earth to get to. And so the spiritual path was always before Christ. You need to leave the body to know the spirit, whether in Egypt or in Buddhism or in the Mesopotamian tradition. You need to become an astral traveler. But now actually the highest forces of the spirit are available on the planet because of Golgotha. So I think he's made these preemptive pardon energies salvific energies available to us while we're working it out. But he loves us so much, and the salvation is so full of love that he's going to allow us not to be saved. We've got to come back to this again and again. Otherwise, it's automatic. And like, what are we doing? What is all this mess for? If he could just go like this and just fix it all. We should all just be angry at God if that's the case. But if God is love, then God would allow us to choose to serve and worship another prince and not choose him. So those are a few reflections, Lewis. Yeah, there's some magical way in which he achieved the victory for the planet, and that victory makes possible energies which allow us to participate in further victories.
Thank you, Patrick. Can I just follow up with one other thing? You know, what we were discussing as well is about this distinction between the substitutory salvation and the participatory salvation. And so I wonder is, you know, I think what we wondered as a group is about this substitution salvation. Is there anything beyond Golgotha that is a substitutory salvation? Because this action of Golgotha then actually leads to the option of participatory salvation.
Yeah, probably in the simplest terms, you could say we are caught up in a cosmic battle with beings that extremely outrank us. With beings that outrank us. We were in the garden and we had a member of the council of God who had turned away from God in the form of a snake who started speaking in our ear. And we were just like, well, God said to do, but we had no idea. We were totally outmatched. It was not a fair fight. So there are parts of this thing that we can't handle yet at all. And that had to be handled by powers much greater than us. That's thus the coming of Christ. But because God has actually destined us to be also sons, that is like he is, to be made in his image, we have to be free, and we have to be kings, and we have to be priests. And therefore our dignity and our freedom can never be taken away, but only enhanced. So he's got to make energies available, but not fix it all. So yeah, that's my attempt to try to point at, there's some, what you said points, I think, in that direction for me. Does that feel right, Lewis?
Thank you, yeah.
You're welcome. I think we have one more hand, and then we'll wrap up this portion of our work together today. I think it was Agnieszka, or no, Ainoa. Am I saying that right?
Yes, thank you.
Hi. Hi.
So I'm gonna try to formulate my question the best that I can.
Okay.
So you mentioned that the fall could be compared to or was the fact that the spirit and the body were separated, and that the path that we were walking on is to regain and reclaim this heaven, and that was the process was reconnecting with the astral world, which was soul and spiritual reality. And you also mentioned different New Age and science fiction writings and stories, and I'm wondering, because I feel like when we reconnect with the astral world and try to reclaim and regain that connection with soul and spirit, there might be kind of also confusions sometimes. And I think that Steiner talks about it in the series of lectures, guidance for man, spiritual guidance for man and humanity. And he talks about the difference between initiation and clairvoyance. Clairvoyance being the capacity to perceive spiritual psychic beings, and initiation being the ability to tell the difference between lower or higher beings. And I guess my question is if you have a key to share today to stay in the right path, to stay in the path of discernment when it comes to opening up to soul spiritual beings.
First of all, thank you for that beautiful summary. I wish I could have said it that clearly to everyone. They might have followed better. And I think you're describing one of the most important questions for us to carry forward into the future. Because more and more people, I think that's part of these phenomena, that people are experiencing visitors from other worlds. I think that's truly happening. My experience and the people I know also is the veil is lifting for many. And they're having a lot of experiences and they don't know how to sort them, name them. And this image of Adam, the human being in the garden, God brings all the animals before him and Adam names them. And the animals are the expressions of the astral starry world. That's what the ancients also saw, animal beings often in the starry heavens. This naming capacity is that initiatory knowledge. And that is the special gift we gain through going through an earth experience. You could say, actually, the great gift for humanity that we all need to get before the earth passes away is a natural, scientifically schooled mind. Because the great thing about the earth is, when you approach the flower from no matter what angle, it keeps its form. And so as you observe it and try to understand it, it holds its nature, and you can correct your mind on it and build your thinking to match the thinking active in it. Which means you can become selfless in your observation and mind and know the thing. That is the schooling for spiritual initiation. True natural scientific observation and care in your mind, actually, an observation. Because when we go into the soul world, for example, we will meet beasts and we will think they're not us. But it's actually our desires revealed to us in an astral form. And we will run and think they are demons. And it's just our own soul forces, for example. Or the way we approach a thing in that world immediately affects its form. So changeable. So the other key I would just say is, in my life, the great gift was certainly, you could say, the pressure and duty that fell to Rudolf Steiner to give a certain and careful path. And he gave that in myriad ways. There is a training in how to know higher worlds. It's all there. It's an absolutely trustworthy path. There is a training at the back of his book, Theosophy. It's a little bit more on the thinking side. How to know higher worlds, a little more on the feeling side. There is a training manual at the back of his book, Esoteric Science. A little bit more on the will side. It's like, well, that all didn't work for you. Okay, I'm going to give you this lecture cycle. I'm going to give you that lecture cycle as well. Okay, didn't spend some time in the philosophy. He just did everything he could, including all 6,000 lectures are nothing but trying to pass on initiation knowledge so you can get oriented in your experiences. People are ending up in psych wards, ending up stuck in astral experiences that are inhibiting their ability to be in this world because they're lacking the key you're talking about. This is so essential. And the other most important key, which is all of those things are just emanations from, is the being of Jesus Christ. He's actually the key to this. We had to be given a human who is himself the heavens. The whole of the heavens are revealed in this human. And we can know him through the Gospels. We can know him through worship. We can know him through direct prayer and experience. And get to know his voice. What it feels like to be in his presence. Seek it again and again. And then you'll be able to distinguish the other voices. So that's the other sure key I can highly recommend. Thank you for that very important question. Yeah. All right. Well, that's all for our time now. Agnieszka, I think we can take your question in the next session. I want to thank you all for jumping into this rich topic with me today and send you out into a good and rich week. Thank you also at home. God bless.